Hi, my name is Lorenzo. I'm a student at Lancaster University.
I'm Rory. I'm in my final year studying French Studies and English Literature at Lancaster.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm a French and linguistics student at Lancaster University, and I was part of a panel on trauma-informed ESOL teaching, specifically in relation to healthcare.
In the panel, we try to explore how trauma can affect language, but also how trauma can affect confidence, your self-esteem, how you present yourself, and how you adapt.
The panel mainly concerned ESOL teaching for refugees with trauma. So it tried to approach ESOL teaching as something that isn't just a classroom-based activity, but is a community based activity, one that focuses on collaboration and student-led curricula, something that isn't just a teacher stood at the front of the room in a rigid classroom.
And how we would teach healthcare related topics, and also how we would make the environment suitable for people who have experienced trauma.
The fact that we all came from a different perspective. So, Rory came in the theory, Grace had was more focused on the classroom environment, and then, I brought in kind of like the lived experience, what it's like to grow up translating, and how fragile it is to kind of navigate both trauma and language at the same time, and what are the barriers, what comes with that.
So we went and interviewed the education coordinator for Global Link, a local charity that focuses on ESOL teaching for refugees. And she posed a few questions to us that we wanted to kind of debate live in the panel and see what people's reactions were to it, and then lead into an interactive workshop from there that brought everyone's opinions together, because it's not about one voice, it's about all of our voices when it comes to something as complex as trauma and teaching trauma. We chose an interactive format to allow as many voices to contribute as possible, because I don't think this is it's not so much a problem, but I don't think it's something that can be approached by one person's experience or one person's interpretation of theory or trauma.
We thought an interactive format would be a good way to both share our research and our findings, but also to learn from the people who would be attending as well.
I think we all really chipped in because it sounded like it was kind of like the perfect practice to kind of open a dialogue. I think that we really wanted to create a space to share that understanding.
I know that this conference brought a lot of academics together, teaching professionals, medical professionals together, and I think it was just so much more interesting and so much more insightful to have all of those voices together, because I think sometimes when these panels come together, they're quite insular. There is only just three of us, there's only three voices really, and so that allowed us to bring in as many people as possible. And by using the prompts that we did, it kind of stopped any sort of awkward, put your hand up and talk about your experience. It was more, okay, so on this specific problem and this specific issue, what do you think?
Well, I think that many themes were important that came out from this discussion, but for me personally, I think it's trust in the context of both the medical and the learning, because that trust can, especially when you're translating or when you're learning, it can easily be broken.
ESOL in the UK is really underfunded, and I would like to see the government put more funding into ESOL and support it, because it's really, really, really important, and it's vital that we've got good, well-supported ESOL teaching in this country.
I guess what was out of the discussion was actually the rigidity of the classroom was the most important thing that I thought of. In my experience of teaching, it's mainly been virtual, or it's been abroad when it was, in like an au pair setting. So my idea of the classroom is someone at the front of the classroom with a big ruler, rigid desks, rigid setting. It's not something that's very enjoyable. But to hear that is something that's being tackled by teachers at the moment, not just for trauma-informed settings, but in general, I think that for me was the most interesting thing that came out of it, and it's something that people have picked up on, that there is a real rigidity in teaching, and that can be detrimental to students, but specifically students with trauma.
But I think we want to be understood the best you can in these certain situations. So when I shared my experience on translating, I think that it's a big thing. I think that it not just language wise, but also emotionally wise.
We also found that the ESOL classroom was an environment. It was a site of healing for people too, where they could have the opportunity to make friendships, grow in confidence, find a voice, and make sure that voice is heard. The experience was great. I had a really nice time working with Rory and Enzo. It was great presenting our work as well. I think it was something we found that we were really proud of.
It was really enjoyable, actually. It was something that Ben posted to us, and it was in the Queer Medical Humanities Network, and we were kind of tossing up the idea of what topics we could talk about, and we landed on medical teaching, and that developed into medical teaching with a focus on trauma. But it was a brilliant experience. It really, because we're all friends anyway, and we studied together, it was really just three friends sitting down talking about a topic that we all have vast experience in, a vast experience of. It was just really enjoyable. It was amazing to sit down at this sort of level, especially as an undergraduate, to have the opportunity to present research in this sort of way, in a much more collaborative and creative way. Yeah, it was really enjoyable, and it was a really, really valuable experience, especially potentially moving on to further research and academia. It was it was a really valuable experience.
So I think the experience of being in the panel, it was really meaningful. And I even spoke about, I mean, it was personal to me. It was something that I wanted to talk about, and I'm really happy that I got to share a little bit, because alongside with the theory, there's also the reality, and yeah, there's a lot of emotional weight when it comes to learning a language, and it can be a really powerful thing, I think, to own that language once you kind of. By the way, I speak 4 and I study 3 at the moment. So I think that there's a certain point when you reach like fluency in a language that you can finally translate your personality, and I think there's nothing better than that. There's nothing more uplifting than knowing that you can express exactly how you feel.